Good evening. Welcome to Turfgrass Epistemology. My name is TravisShaddox. Thank you for joining me this evening. We're going to be going over PGRs tonight in soil health. We're going to be talking about their effect on soil health, as well as wetting agents and a microbial product. First of all, let me issue a correction from Monday's members only show. I was talking about a chemical label, and the label was for fluorprimidol, I think. And I went in and I was discussing how the label provides some claims and that it wasn't really supported by the article I was going over. However, later in the label, it actually states, do not apply this product to Bermuda grass greens. And that article was on a Bermuda grass green. So I wanted to issue a correction that the label was fine because it does state don't use it on that. So apologize for that error I made on Monday. Also, welcome to the newest member. I can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry, sir, but I want to say it's Maud Adib. I apologize for probably butchering that name, but welcome, Mode. I'm not sure. M-O-H-D. I don't know how to pronounce it. Maybe send me a text or an email and correct me how to pronounce your name. On that note, I wanted to point out that members have access to quite a few additional videos like this that I record live on Monday mornings, but they remain behind a members wall, and someone can go and look. One of the members can go and look. I don't know, 15, 20 or so, whatever. I'm doing one a week for the members only, and so there's a lot of content to go through that is on YouTube that's only available to members. In addition, for the pro members, we also have you can get a free counsel with me every year. Once a year, but we also have about a meeting with the pro members about once every 2 months or so, 3 months, and the next one's going to be coming up. So I'll post a link in the pro members community tab for an upcoming meeting. It'll probably be in a week or two. It's almost always in the evening, and we just meet for about an hour and talk about turf stuff. It's nothing. There's no pressure. You can just hang out and talk. Sometimes the members just talk amongst themselves and help each other out. It's just an opportunity to foster communication in a community to help each other out. I don't have all the answers. Sometimes I can help, sometimes I can't. But we'll look for that. If you're a pro member, you'll see that in the community tab. Probably tomorrow, sometime this week, I'll post in the community tab the date and the time. We just meet on Zoom. Okay. That's all I had on that. I wanted to also, I don't know if I can post a link to a video in the chat. As I own the channel, I might be able to do that. Let me see if I can do that. I can do that. I don't think the other people can do that. I don't think you can post links. But I got a email today from one of our members, Randy from Bulgaria, and he sent me an email that I really appreciate him, or a link to a video that I really appreciate him sending, because it's a video from the Sports Turf Managers Association with a gentleman named Paul Cushing, who's going to be talking about soils in the next Sports Field Managers Association, which I don't know where it is, Arizona, I think, or maybe California, I can't remember. It's usually in February, I believe. And I posted the link to it in the chat here. And I encourage you to go watch that. And one reason why I'm encouraging you to watch that is because he talks about base count saturation and calcium magnesium ratios and potassium magnesium ratios. He also talks about methylated ureas. And we've talked about all that on this channel. And we've shown published papers on those topics on this channel. Please go back and look at those episodes if you'd like to. And one reason why I'm posting the link in the chat is because I'm going to post another link in the chat right now from the same association, the Sports Field Managers Association, from 5 years ago, where they had a speaker, Dr. Bill Kreuzer, talking about soil testing. And Dr. Kreuzer talks about soil testing. And then this year, this gentleman, Paul Cushing's talking about soil testing, and they're almost in direct conflict with each other. Paul's apparently, I don't know Paul, I've never heard him talk. I watched the video. He's indoctrinated into believing that he needs to balance his calcium magnesium. And 5 years ago, Dr. Kreuzer went in there and gave what I thought was a very fast-paced, straight to the point. It was an hour-long talk that Bill gave, but he uses some language that I need to get used to using a little bit more I don't know. I don't want to say bad language, but I mean, you just a little bit. I need to get more used to just using language that I'm not comfortable with, because sometimes it makes a good point. And Bill used a couple words in there. I'm like, yes, that's good. I was sitting here laughing tonight before I turned on the YouTube. Is great. So thanks for doing that talk a couple years ago, Bill. That was a good talk. And anyway, the point is that from the same association, you're getting conflicting information, very conflicting information. You can't have it both ways. You can't be and not be simultaneously, right? That's a logical absolute, and you can't violate that. So you either are or you are not, and there is no in between. So it's strange that they would allow a speaker to talk about a subject, which I don't know his qualifications, but if he's talking about base count saturation and the validity and use on sports fields, then he's clearly not educated in soil testing, and he's incompetent in that regard. He doesn't know the literature. And the Sport Turf Managers Association had a specialist 5 years ago who talked about that exact topic and said, don't use base count saturation. There's no point. It's useless. It's used by salesmen to sell you things. And now apparently this year they have someone who's talking about the exact opposite. So anyway, that's unfortunate that happens sometimes. But when sometimes you don't have these speakers vetted and the content vetted prior to, or the qualifications or just the qualifications of the speakers, and they're, are they actually specialists in that area? Has it actually been determined that they're specialists? If you're not going to go down those roads, then you get people in there that talk about stuff they don't know what they're talking about. And I think that's what's going to happen this year at the Sports Field Managers Association for Bill Cushing. So, but thank you to Randy for sending me that video. I will go over that video at some point on one of the Tuesday morning shows as well. Okay, so thank you for Randy. And please feel free to send me any videos on YouTube. I can't keep up with all this stuff. And to be frank, mentally, I can't handle it. I can only take 5 or 10 minutes of this BS, and then I just got to shut it off and go, okay, I'll review it on the channel. It's going to be more entertaining just to videotape myself watching it than it is for me to sit here and have to beat my head against the wall watching it, in the living room. So if you can watch it for me and then send me a link and say, hey, here's some good information, that good video you might want to look at, please feel free to send it to me. My email is TravisShaddox@gmail.com. All the information's in the links or the description of every video. Or you can just text me or call me at 859-444-4234. That's also in the description of every video. Oh yeah, Ryan. So so Ryan's in the chat, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ryan, you were on the educational committee for a while. I thought you were still on the education until I just read this comment in the chat. It says the Sports Field Managers Association Education Committee is a tough place to work. There's a reason I stopped volunteering for it. So I guess I'm sorry that you're no longer on the committee, but maybe that's a good thing for you, Ryan. I don't know. But there's also a reason why I've only spoken at the SFMAs once. And I have faculty, colleagues of mine, who have been faculty for over 30 years, and they've never spoken at that association. Not that it's a good or bad thing. I'm just saying that, whatever. The committees can be challenging regardless of the association. And I would be happy to speak at it if, it's not, I don't have a problem with the association. I enjoyed the talk last year. In fact, last year was one of the better talks I've given, a packed house, and they didn't record it. It was one of 2 talks last year in Daytona that the IT equipment failed. Imagine that. Even when I'm not in charge of the IT equipment, it fails when I'm talking. So it's not just me. I think there's an aura around me that the computer systems tend to fail whenever I'm around it. Those senior members of the channel know what I'm talking about. I tend to not know what I'm doing when it comes to this computer stuff. Yeah, no, you're right, Ryan. I mean, saying vetting content can be a tough, and the effort to do so is lackluster. Yeah, there's a lot of work. You can't vet all the content that's going to be spoken about. But in this case, the speaker has a video up now. And by the way, I don't understand why the Sport Turf Managers Association changed the name to Sports Field Managers Association, which makes sense, I suppose. It's not just turf, it's the field itself, all the field. But their YouTube channel, they're still loading stuff to the Sports Turf Managers Association YouTube channel and not the Sports Field Managers Association YouTube channel. It's strange. I don't know what if that was an accident on their behalf or not. I'm not sure. But regardless, you can't vet all the information. It's impossible. I mean, you just do your best job you can. And they loaded that video, and I found it very curious because as soon as I was watching the video and he was saying these things about calcium and magnesium, I knew from the history that they had already had a speaker in the association talk about that subject and say very clearly and show very clearly that it didn't work. Next December in Columbus, Ohio for the Ohio Turf Foundation. Book at Dr. Shaddox. Okay, that's from Ryan. Yeah, well, if my doors and windows are always open. Okay, so I make fun of myself saying that again, the senior members of the channel know this. Occasionally I'll say stuff like this, but I say stuff like I'm building a compound around my house to where I've built everything such that I'm trying to figure out a way where I never have to leave my house. Right? My wife knows what I'm talking about. She's like, why don't you want to do this? Why don't you want to do this? Like, we're scheduling trips all over the world for next year, and we're going all over creation, and she knows that it's challenging for me. But I really am like, I prefer to stay at the house. Having said all that stuff, I still travel all the time, and I love giving talks and speeches. And nowadays I don't have as much, concern or I'm not as concerned about offending people occasionally like I used to when I was in academia. You got to be real careful. You got to tiptoe around a lot of landmines when you're in academia, not to tick off any funders and any administrators, any deans. You got to be real careful. I think that's part of the problem. That's kind of one of the reasons why we end up where we're at today, because we tend to be a little, shy about just speaking the truth. And so nowadays my talks are just, they're effortless at this point. There's no stress. I just go up there and just talk. And maybe I should have been doing that from the beginning. I don't know. But anyway, I appreciate that. Ryan, just shoot me an email if you're involved with that or whatever. I'd be happy to come talk. Then Hickner says, hey, Travis, I just wanted to thank you for all your work. You're now the only lawn YouTuber I listen to. Okay. And I really respect what you're doing on your channel, and I think it's amazing work. Well, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. I'll take all the compliments I can get, because God knows I get a lot of hate mail. I get a lot. And I'll do a comments show probably, I don't know, maybe next week, probably next Tuesday night. I'll do a comment show, an email and commentary show. And by the way, I'm floating around the idea in my mind or in my head about having some just guest on to just take off some of the weight off of my shoulders when I'm here. I don't know if anybody's interested in that. If anybody is, shoot me an email just to kind of hang out and talk while I'm doing this, and you can talk while I'm doing it, or whatever you want to do. But I'll do a comment and email show, and you'll see there's a lot of nonsense. So, but I like that. The strange thing about it is that people send me a lot of hate mail, a lot of like, show me your lawn, and I don't believe you, and and just angry stuff and calling me names and stuff. But I don't think what I don't think they realize is that because I'm neurodiverse, that I feed off of that stuff. I love that stuff. The regular comments from all the members, I'm grateful for that. Believe me, I've said it many, many times, 99% of the comments on this channel are all very positive. All the emails, I got emails today, or who was it from? Somebody, I can't remember, I apologize. I should know this right off the top of my head. I just got an email from him again a couple hours ago. I don't use his name, but I was going to say where he's from. Showing me pictures of his lawn, how much, my recommendations helped him. And I love that stuff. It's great. But when it comes to like content for the show, I love the hate mail. I love it. So send me more. It's just fantastic. And I have yet to see any hate mail or any comment back that has any sort of scientific validity to it at all. It's all just, arrogance and Dunning-Kruger and flaws after flaws in reasoning. And what I'm waiting for, and I'll tell you right now what I'm waiting for, is for someone to say, Travis, I disagree with your opinion, or I disagree with your comment in this area because of this particular publication says whatever, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, that's a great response. That's guaranteed to get on the comment show, because that's a civil discourse. That's a scientifically valid, back and forth. It's a conversation scientifically that I'm looking forward to. But just to email me and say, I've done it for years and I don't believe you, my lawn looks great. That's just a flaw. Don't worry about it. So anyway, enough. I'm trying to get to my article tonight. I've just been lollygagging talking about stuff, but Charlie Foxtrot says another great topic fertilizer reps seldom elaborate on during their presentations. Yeah. So I appreciate all the people here. Let's get into the article tonight because it is an interesting article. And as I said on Monday morning to the members only, I'll say it again to the open public show. This month we're talking about PGRs, or plant growth regulators. And I want to make sure it's absolutely 100% clear. There is, I'll say everybody listening to this right now, everyone knows more about plant growth regulators than I do. My 13-year-old son knows more about plant growth regulators than I do. Honestly, I don't know anything about plant growth regulators. So I'm very likely going to say something incorrect, okay, unintentionally. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to have to basically stay between the boundaries of the article. I can't really venture out too much. I can't elaborate or expand a whole lot because I have almost no knowledge of this topic at all. So I'm learning along with everybody else. So if you don't know anything about PGRs, then you and I are in the same exact boat for this entire month, and we're going to learn together. Okay, so that's the topic for this month, and we're going to get into it. So this is just not an area that I'm comfortable with. I'm not a plant physiologist. I'm a soils person. I've used plant growth regulators, but that doesn't mean I know how they operate and how it should be used. Okay, so you'll have to bear with me. If I make an error, please send me an email or put something in the chat. I'll be happy to acknowledge I made an error because I don't hardly know anything about it. So with that, let's get started. The title for tonight, the article we're going to go over, is called "Evaluating the Impact of Turf Care Products on Soil Biological Health." Now, for those of you who don't know, I haven't really got into soil health yet. I am not a proponent of using this catchphrase soil health. I know the federal government is. I know they're throwing tons of money at it, and I know that's the movement forward. I'm not saying it's not going to be useful, but I'm not a proponent of it because I can't really define it that well. This paper attempts to, and these authors are great. Paul Raymer is one of the great. He's been on the show. I mean, he's one of the greatest soil scientists and turf science, I should say, that alive today. Very, very well respected. But they define soil health in this paper, and they do it very poorly. No offense, but it's just not a well-defined. It's so amorphous. I don't know what it means. If you try to define human health, you put 50 doctors in a room and tell them to come up with the definition of human health, they'll be in that room till the end of time because there's so many things that can be impacting that. Okay, so until we can come up with a consensus definition of soil health and a consensus methodology on how we're going to put a number on soil health, I would just be very hesitant to start going down those roads because it's very ambiguous and amorphous. I mean, health. Okay, what does that mean? Well, we're talking about blood pressure. We're talking about cholesterol. Okay, let's talk about those things because health is everything in the human body, it seems like. And so health is everything in the turfgrass soil system. Well, that's a lot. That's a tremendous, big bucket. So we can talk about soil health indicators. I'm okay with that. But throwing around these soil health numbers, I got a 70 on a soil health test. What does that mean? What did you measure? And if you did measure whatever you measured, how do you know there wasn't something else that should have been measured that you didn't measure? Or how do you know you measured everything that you did measure should have been measured? There's a lot of stuff there that I'm not entirely comfortable with. And I think that's the movement forward. I mean, I'm in agreement with what we're doing in soil biological health, soil health. Well, it's probably going to be very useful to us at some point. But as of right now, I'm just not entirely in the same boat until we figure out some way, like I said, to method and an agreeable definition and indicators. Because if you're just going to use the indicators, then let's just talk about the indicators themselves. And I'm okay with that, but not this amorphous idea of health. Okay. Anyway, so having said all that, evaluating the impact of turf care products on soil biological health by Alex Diera, Paul Raymer, Alfredo Martinez Espinoza, Ellen, I can't pronounce this right, your last name, Ellen, I apologize, Alan Bosk, I'm going to say, and then Musi, I'm really sorry, I can't pronounce your last name either, but Musi Habitaselassie, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that either. Paul, it's not my intent to disrespect anybody, I just can't pronounce that name, I apologize. So This was published in a high journal, I believe, the Journal of Environmental Quality, so JEQ, which I only have one paper in JEQ. So this is JEQ is a very important journal. It's a top tier journal, one of our 4 or 5 top tier journals that we aspire to publish in. And so we'll get started. We're going to be talking about 2 or 3 products: a wetting agent, a biological product, and some plant growth regulators and how they affect soil health. The introduction. In maintaining turf grass, optimizing resource efficiency is critical to promote sustainable growth, playability, and aesthetics while mitigating associated economic and environmental costs. And that's what I've said for a long time. You may be 100% capitalist and 0% environmentalist, or you may be the other way around. One way or the other, though, there's a balance between these two. You can't just say, screw the environment, and we're just going to go all in on capitalism. And you can't say, screw capitalism, we should just be all environmental, and you shouldn't do anything that affects the environment in any negative way. There's somewhere in the middle is usually the correct position to be. And they say that here in the first sentence. We got to be aware of the economic and environmental costs. Golf course superintendents are often under pressure to cultivate resilient turfgrass under a variety of stresses that include longer growing seasons, extreme weather events, soil compaction, and diseases, among others. Golf course management programs aim to maintain resiliency by incorporating a variety of products to relieve abiotic and biotic stresses on the turfgrass. Such products currently sold on the market include wetting agents, plant growth regulators, and biological products that often contain microbial inoculants. Now, the biological product they use, I've never heard of it. I'm going to show it to you, but I've never heard of this biological product at all. And they say that it's commonly sold to superintendents, and I'm like, I've never heard that. But I mean, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Wetting agents are alcohol-based, amphipathic surfactants applied to relieve localized dry spots caused by soil hydrophobicity common in sand-based golf courses. That's a really complicated way of saying wetting agents are surfactants. A surfactant is an acronym or a short or an abbreviation, I guess, for a surface acting agent. It's an element or it's a component that's added to the water that, because it has a hydrophobic tail and a hydrophilic head, they orient themselves on the surface of a liquid, and it reduces the surface tension of water, and it basically helps the water move into the soil. Those are wetting agents. Okay, not every wetting agent has that layout, but that's the main ones that we use. Plant growth regulators target growth hormones to inhibit shoot development and promote root growth to improve turf density, uniformity, and stress tolerance. Plant growth regulators will also harm root growth, reduce root growth. And we showed that on Monday morning on the members only show. If you're not a member and you want to go back and watch that, just pull out the $5 and be a member, and you can go watch that show. Where there's plant growth regulators will oftentimes have an influence on root growth. That's for sure, but it's not always beneficial. Sometimes it can be harmful, and I showed that on Monday morning. Biological products often include microorganisms that are marketed to be effective in the suppression of common turfgrass diseases. Resilient and stable microbial responses to stress disturbances are central to promoting a long-term healthy soil ecosystem. Organic matter decomposition, nutrient cycling, and turfgrass resilience involve processes driven by microbial actions that directly affect soil health. There is almost nothing you're going to do in turfgrass, in terms of products or applications or, looking at turf growth, there's almost nothing you're going to do that is not influenced by microbes. Whether it's NPK, iron, manganese, whatever it is, you're applying pesticides, you're applying wetting agents, microbes are going to get theirs first. There are just so many of them. They have a massive impact on soil and plant health and development, and it's staggering the effect they have. And I don't know why we don't look into that more than we have. So they're talking about breaking down the organic matter by microbes have an effect on soil health, and that's definitely true. Organic matter decomposition lessens the buildup of thatch, promotes root growth, and mitigates pathogens. Microbial decomposers release nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients essential to turfgrass growth. So we're just talking about microbes in the soil. Healthy soils can be, here's the definition. Now, you can tell me your opinion of it. I'll tell you my opinion of it. Okay. This is the definition they have. Healthy soils can be defined as soils that promote the proliferation of microorganisms that provide beneficial services to plants, such as enhanced nutrient acquisition, protection against pathogens, and improvement in plant survival under abiotic stresses. I don't know how that differs from just a soil. I don't understand it. So, in other words, improvement in plant survival, improvement compared to what? That promote the proliferation of microorganisms compared to what? I don't understand it. So I don't know if that's the consensus definition of soil health or healthy soils. But again, this is an example I'm saying. It just seems to be so amorphous and undefined. Compared to what? I mean, just a soil will do that. So you want to delineate or partition soils from healthy soils or healthy soils from soils. If you're going to say healthy soils will do X, Y, and Z compared to what? Unhealthy soils or other soils or sands or I don't know what to do with that. And that's the uncomfortability I've had with this idea of healthy soils for ages. I don't know what to say about that because I don't know what they're comparing. I don't know what they're expecting. So you're going to define this as a healthy soil. So would it be any soil that does not promote the proliferation of microorganisms? That would be an unhealthy soil? I mean, that might make sense, I guess, but I just don't know what that means. Anyway, I'm thinking too much about it. Parameters such as microbial abundance, enzyme activity, and soil respiration can serve as indicators of soil biological health, and I'm in 100% agreement with that. If you're going to measure microbial abundance, you're going to measure enzyme activity, or you're going to measure soil respiration and say this product or this management practice influenced these particular parameters, I'm okay with that. But if you're going to use those 3 or 4 as an indicator for soil biological health, okay, my question back is, what are you not accounting for? There's got to be a number of other things in the soil that would also influence soil biological health. And why aren't they being accounted for? And how do we know that these are the 3 that we should be looking at? It just, I don't know. It's just too, I'm black and white, and that's just not clear enough for me. It never has been. It's not the fault of these authors. It just never has been. Functional redundancy is expected from many soil microbial species. Thus, quantifying broader microbial groups such as total bacteria, fungi, and ammonia oxidizers is an effective approach to evaluating biological soil health. Okay. What else, though? I mean, you're only going to look at these particular things and say it's an effective way to evaluate it. And they have a citation for that, but I don't know. I'm just not on board yet. Ammonia oxidizers are particularly useful because of the key role they play in nitrogen cycling and their sensitivity to management practices. So that's the reason they're going to measure that and say it's an indicator of. I agree, it's an indicator. You know, I would say it's a variable that clearly has an influence on plants. And if you're going to say that, then and you're going to say that's a factor in soil health, then I'm in agreement with that. So just look at that, and that's what they do. They just look at that. Anyway, they mediate oxidation of ammonia to nitrate, which is the first and rate-limiting step in nitrification. That's my world. This is where I live, in these soils with nitrogen conversions and ammonification and nitrification. So I'm not too far away from my world in this PGR paper. Urease catalyzes the hydrolysis of urea to ammonia, whereas phosphatase catalyzes the conversion of organic phosphorus to orthophosphates. As such, measuring their activity offers insight into changes in nutrient cycling and availability in responses to amendments. So they're going to be measuring that urease and the phosphatase. Wetting agents, PGRs, and biological products are commonly incorporated into golf course management programs, but their impact on beneficial microorganisms driving turfgrass productivity has not been extensively researched. See, I don't know anything about this, but when I was first looking at this, from my perspective, when they're talking about wetting agents and biological products, I don't know what's in PGRs. I don't know how they're constructed. But I know wetting agents have a large carbon component to them. At least most of them do, as far as I know. All of them do. They have a long carbon chain, and their tail has a long carbon tail on it. And so I'm thinking, well, it's going to have an effect on moisture distribution and uniformity in the soil, a wetting agent. And it's going to be adding some carbon to the soil. So just from a 10,000 foot level, my initial thoughts when I was reading this, before I even got to the results, I'm thinking, I would think a wetting agent probably would have a beneficial effect on microbial populations because it's going to likely alleviate any moisture issues that are in the soil, or at least moisture distribution and uniformity in the soil. And it's going to be adding, albeit a small amount, but it's going to be adding some carbon that's very likely rapidly broken down. And that'd be a food source for microbes. So that's what I was thinking. I'm just giving you insight into my mentality when I'm reading these papers. I'm thinking, okay, well, I would think that would probably have a beneficial impact, and biologicals might have a beneficial impact if you're going to apply enough of it. But PGRs, I don't know. Previous studies have mainly focused on the impacts of fertilization, mowing, irrigation, and soil disturbance on soil microorganisms. Studies on wetting agents, PGRs, and biological products have mainly focused on their impact on turf quality, not on soil biological health. And as you all know, for the umpteenth time on this channel, I'll tell you again, that's what I care about, turf quality. If you want to measure other things as an indicator as to why the turf quality changed and to help our knowledge, I'm okay with that. No problem. Help us understand the system. I'm okay with that. But first and foremost, I want to know what the client cares about most. And I want to look at that metric. If the client cares about tensile strength and being able to pull the sod out of the field, that's what I want to care about first, if that's what they care about first. I don't care about soil biological health. I couldn't give two flips about it. I couldn't give two flips about the nitrogen or anything, potassium, whatever, if it's not going to have an effect, or if we're not going to measure the variable, that at least the highest priority variable that particular client cares about the most. On putting greens, it might be ball speed. They might go to hell with turf quality. Yeah, we don't care about turf quality. We care about speed. We want ours rolling 15 or something crazy. Or it might be the opposite. So in my world, the majority cases, turf quality is the driving factor. It's the highest priority variable. And he's saying that biological products have mainly focused on their impact on turf quality. Yes, that's true. Not on soil biological health. I'm okay with measuring soil biological health. I'm even okay with measuring it as long as if you're trying to say, okay, this is why it's having an impact on turf quality. I'm okay because that increases our knowledge base. But I'm not interested in soil biological health just as a number to change. Well, we're going to increase soil biological health or decrease soil biological health or whatever. Well, I don't care. It's like saying, I'm going to increase the potassium in the soil. I don't care. Unless you can convince me that value, one, is having a harmful effect on the turf where it is now, and changing it is going to have a beneficial impact further down the road. If you can convince me that that's the case, or that's what you're attempting to show or working on, then I'm all for that. But I'm not looking at soil biological health or any other factor in the soil just as a number on a test, just to chase numbers. I'm not looking at that. It has to be connected to something I care about, and that is generally turf quality. The overall goal of this study was, therefore, to address the dynamics between these products and soil microbial communities in the putting green and fairway of a golf course. The primary objective was to evaluate the short-term impacts of select wetting agents, PGRs, and a biological product on the abundance and activities of microbial communities. Okay. So materials and methods. 2 field trials were established on Rivermont Country Club in Johns Creek, Georgia. So if anybody's near Johns Creek, Georgia, and knows Rivermont Country Club, that is where this study was conducted in the spring of 2017. One trial was established on a putting green, and the other was established on a fairway. The two studies were performed at different times. They weren't simultaneous. The putting green trial was initiated in mid-March. 2 wetting agents, a biological product, and a non-treated control, which was water, were applied to experimental plots in 5 replications on a putting green sand soil with 3% soil organic matter and an average pH of 6.5. The experimental field plots, they use wetting agents. The wetting agents were Cascade Plus and Duplex and Revolution. Okay. I guess Cascade Plus and Duplex were always applied together. I guess they have C plus D here. And the biological product was Plant Helper. Plant Helper is a commercial product that is often marketed to superintendents and is described by the manufacturer as containing some bug, Atroviridae, and other naturally derived components that are capable of providing multiple functions to stimulate plant growth and enhance plant self-resistance to various diseases and insects. Now, when you hear that, that's probably your alarm bell should be going off. So let's look at that product. If you go to Plant Helper, actually go to ampacbiotech.net. You can look at this product. I've never heard of this product. It's just called Plant Helper. And it says Plant Helper lets plants absorb more nutrients from the soil. I don't know how they know that. Enhance water transport while maintaining plant health. I don't know how they know that. Probably just a bunch of nonsense. I have no clue. Maybe it's true. Maybe they have a bunch of data to support it. Who knows? But when you start talking about absorb more nutrients into soil and enhance water transport, I know how hard that is to actually measure, and I doubt they actually did it. Plant Helper is formulated with this Trichoderma atroviridae, I don't know how to say that, a beneficial fungus that was discovered and patented by internationally renowned plant pathologist Professor Jennifer Wang McBeath. And it says ease of use and high spore counts make Plant Helper ideal for applications where drought and limited moisture already exists, and so forth. So you can see these are the products, the Plant Helper, and they only have one product, and they have it in different formulations. And I couldn't find the label, so I'm just letting you know. This is the best I could do to give you an idea of what I'm dealing with. I've never seen it, I've never heard it, I've never used it. I don't know what it is, other than apparently it has a microbe in it, a fungus in it. And that's all I can tell you. And they claim, a lot of stuff with it. All the amendments were applied twice all amendments were applied twice at half the recommended application rates for the products with 15-liter backpack sprayer to ensure uniformity. For the non-treated plots, an equal volume of water was applied, which is important, especially on foliar products, guys and gals, and grad students and everybody else listening who might be doing this work. If you go, I'm going to apply all this stuff in a backpack sprayer as a foliar, I'm just not going to do anything to the non-treated control. That's not wise, especially if you're doing something like an iron product or a manganese product, and you're going to leave it on the leaf surface. You're putting out like 1 gallon an acre, or whatever the case is, because the liquid, the water carrier itself could have something in it, like iron, that would have an effect on the plant. So you need to go ahead and apply that same carrier volume to the non-treated plant when you're doing foliar work. And that's what they did. Cascade Plus and Duplex and Revolution are liquid products. The Plant Helper comes in powder but was made into a solution. So they sprayed it out. Applications were repeated 31, 64, and 92 days after initial treatment. So here's the table. You can see all the products on here. Revolution, Cascade Plus, and what was the other one? C and D. Well, I can't even remember now. Duplex. And then Plant Helper, and then the Plant Growth Regulator was Primo Max. I'll get to that in a second. They did it in the Fairway. I think they did that in the Fairway. And then they also had Cutlass, which was Florprimidol. Remember, Florprimidol on Bermuda grass on Monday morning was not good. And it's labeled to not be applied on Bermuda grass greens. So, give them credit. They don't say to put it on Bermuda grass greens. And maybe that's why. Maybe they saw that study and say, hey, we can't do that. On the Fairway trial, the Bermuda grass Fairway trial was initiated in mid-May. 2 PGRs, Primo Max and Cutlass, were applied to the plots, experimental plots, on a sandy clay loam fairway soil with an average pH of 6.1. Now, one thing they didn't say in here, I can go back and look, and please feel free to download it yourself and check it out. They didn't say what turf grass was on the putting green. So I don't, and it's in Georgia, this is in Georgia. So in Georgia, you can have, believe it or not, you can have bent grass, depending on where you're at in Georgia, or you can have Bermuda grass. So I don't know. Maybe somebody knows Rivermont Country Club in 2017, 7 years ago, what turf they had on their putting greens. I don't know what they had. And it doesn't say, at least the best of I can tell, it doesn't say what it was. So I don't know what was on the putting green, but in the In the fairway trial, it was Bermuda grass. Each product in the non-treated control were repeated 5 times. The products in the non-treated control were applied on 0, 29, and 59 days after the study. Sampling, they took composite soil samples, and they did it at 4 hours, which was the 0 day, and then they did it at 14 and 84 days, and they collected it to 10 centimeters and then cut it in half. And then they did it at 0 days on the fairway, and then did it at 15, 42, 63, and 98 days. Soil samples were stored at 4 degrees centigrade until processing and to remove plant debris. And they did this for the abundance enzyme assay and soil respiration analysis. Sample analysis, quantitative, so qPCR, quantitative polymerase chain reaction was used to estimate the abundance of total bacteria, total fungi, ammonia oxidizing archaea, ammonia oxidizing bacteria, and in the soil, collected from the upper 5 centimeters. Soil DNA was extracted from each sample using the DNease Power Soil DNA Extraction Kit. So I'm gonna say it now. The ammonia oxidizing archaea is AOA. I'm not gonna remember that. I'm just gonna say AOA from now on. And the ammonia oxidizing bacteria is AOB. I'll try my best, but this is my wife's world. She used to do all this qPCR stuff in dentistry. I don't know all this stuff. So I'll do my best to AOA and AOB, whatever that is. It's just the ammonia. It's both in both cases. One of them is the oxidizing archaea, and one of them is the oxidizing bacteria for ammonia. So in either way, it has to do. Both of them have to do with the conversion of nitrogen. Okay. Soil samples collected from 0 to 5 and from 5 to 10 centimeters below the soil surface were colorimetrically analyzed to estimate the rate of phosphatase activity. Okay. I'm not going to go on statistical analysis. I'm going to go right to the results and discussion. Okay. In putting greens, total bacteria and the AOB populations responded significantly to wetting agents and to the microbial product, the plant helper product. It sounds good. Oh, there's a significant difference in the bacteria. Well, I'll read the next sentence. The abundance of total bacteria, the ammonia oxidizing bacteria populations in all products were significantly lower than the abundance observed from the non-treated control. Average abundance of the total bacteria was twice as high in the non-treated control as it was in the wetting agents, including Revolution, and in the microbial product, the plant helper plots. And the mean of the abundance was in an order of magnitude lower in all treated samples compared to the non-treated control. So you're going to hear in table 2, and you'll see right here, we're looking at total bacteria from the wetting agents, which are these 2 products, and then the microbial product, which is this product, and the non-treated control is here. I've highlighted all the non-treated control in red. You can see the total bacteria all declined when they used these products, the wetting agents. I thought, my initial thought was it might go up for these, I don't know, bacteria, but either one of the microbes might actually show an increase. But that's not what happened with the wetting agents. And the plant helper product didn't, it showed a reduction as well. And then the total fungi, there was no difference in total fungi from any of these products compared to non-treated soil. There was no difference in the AOA, the archaea, ammonia oxidizing archaea. And then in the ammonia oxidizing bacteria, there was also a reduction. There was a reduction with these wetting agents and the plant promoting or the plant helper product. So these products having a reduction on the bacteria and a reduction on the microorganism, one of the microorganisms responsible for ammonia oxidation, which shouldn't. That's a disadvantage. You would think you'd want more of that. So I don't know what they think about that, but it's not good. The response of wetting agents and the plant helper suggests bacterial sensitivity to the products. Wetting agents may cause phytotoxicity and may similarly affect bacteria. Apparently, that's true. The reason for the negative impact of the plant helper on bacteria is not clear and is contrary to what we expected. Its active ingredient is this atroviriaid fungi. It is described as a beneficial fungus that suppresses disease and promotes plant growth. It seems that the products mainly affected heterotrophic bacteria that are fast-growing and dominant in resource-rich environments such as turfgrass systems. As such, it is understandable that they are the ones that responded to the products as opposed to the total fungi. So they don't know why this plant helper didn't help the soil, the ammonia oxidizing microbes. It didn't help that at all. It reduced it. They don't really know why. But that's what they found. In the fairway, the abundance of total fungi and the AOB, the bacteria, oxidizing bacteria, and the oxidizing archaea were not significantly altered by the plant, or I'm sorry, the PM or CL applications. What was PM and CL? They got so many of these acronyms in here, I can't keep track of them all. What was the AM and CL? CL is the cutlass. Or the PM was the Primo Max. Okay, so the two plant growth regulators. I may have trouble getting through this if there's going to be a lot of that. Okay, so in the fairway, the abundance of the fungi and these bacteria were not significantly altered by the plant growth regulator applications as compared to non-treated turf. Okay, total bacteria populations were comparable when pooled by treatment, except at 42 days, in which the Primo Max samples had higher abundance than the non-treated sample, Table 3. So if you look at Table 3, they're all the same at 0 day. This is comparing non-treated turfgrass with the Cutlass and the Primo. At 0, they're working at total bacteria abundance, and you see nothing at 0 days, nothing at 15 days. And at 42 days, you saw a little bit of an increase here using Primo Max, and nothing at 63 days and nothing at 98 days. So essentially nothing happened except for one little blip on the radar from Primo. The increase in root mass from the 2 monthly applications of Primo may have caused this spike in heterotrophic bacterial populations that would have benefited from the release of highly labile carbon sources in the form of root exudates. Labile just means soluble or available or movable. Okay, so what they're saying is this little blip here by Primo may be a result of the plant, of Primo having an effect on plant roots if the plant roots were exuding root carbon compounds. And you remember I showed that paper a couple of weeks ago where they're applying all this compost on and the effect on total carbon and soluble carbon. And they're applying, 70 tons of compost per acre. Again, they were comparing it to nothing. And when it came to the soluble organic carbon on St. Augustine grass, and there's on the soluble organic carbon after 1 or 2, 3 years, you saw the soluble organic carbon continue to go up from the compost treatments, but you also saw it go up from just the St. Augustine grass that had no compost on it. Clearly, that's an indicator that the plant is exuding carbon compounds regularly and at fairly high levels. Okay, and what they're saying is if Primo increased root production, which it has been known to do, which the paper on Monday morning showed that could happen, this is possibly an explanation as to why you see an increase in the total bacteria abundance at 42 days after treatment from Primo when you don't see it from anything else. Okay, that's not too much of a stretch. They come up with some explanation. I don't think that's too much of a stretch. The problem is they didn't measure roots, so at least they didn't publish it in this paper. And it says here, get this, Cutlass is another wetting agent. Why would they say wetting agent? It's not a wetting agent. It's a plant growth regulator. Cutlass is another wetting agent. It says here, that's an error, commonly used in golf courses, but Cutlass may cause turf damage as observed in this study. Now, they didn't show any data on the damage. So again, on Bermuda grass fairways, now we saw on Monday morning, Bermuda grass greens got hammered with Cutlass, with fluoropyrimidol, got just hammered. It went from, I think, an 8 on the quality scale to 3.7 after 3 months. Just absolutely got devastated by fluoropyrimidol, but Bermuda grass greens. In this case, they're doing it on Bermuda grass fairways, and it still says it resulted in damage, but they didn't publish that. So I don't know to what degree that damage was significant or not in terms of any biological significance. Anyway, as such, it probably was not as effective as Primo in promoting root growth. In fact, McCarty, Willis, Tolber, and Whitwella in 2011 reported that the active ingredient in Primo, which is Trexpac ethyl, resulted in excellent turfgrass quality and increased root density by 33% as compared to the control, whereas the active ingredient in Cutlass, which is fluoropyrimidol, resulted in poor turf quality and reduced root density by 25% as compared to the control. So I bet C-Pro is not happy with some of these results. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, C-Pro is the manufacturer of Cutlass. And they're not getting good results on Bermuda grass at all. Not on the putting greens and not in fairways. At least not from these results. So, I've never used Cutlass or Florprimadol. I've used the heck out of Primo. And it can be very, very effective. It can be your friend, to say the least, especially on putting greens. Especially on Tip Eagle putting greens. It can be your friend. Low rates, regular applications. I'm sure we're all used to that at this point, but I've never used Cutlass, but man, it's getting hammered in these papers. Enzyme activities. There was a significant treatment effect of urease activity in the putting green and fairway soil. So now we're looking at urease as an indicator of soil health. Urease being the enzyme that's used to convert urea into the next nitrogen form down the road, ammonium and so forth, all down the road. In the putting green, urease activity was significantly higher in the wetting agents, what was it? Duplex and, I'm never going to remember this, Duplex and Cascade. Sorry. Then in the non-treated control and the plant helper samples. So the two wetting agents were higher than the non-treated control and the plant helper samples at 84 days. At the 5 to 10 centimeter depth, table 5. So if you go down to table 5, you'll see that here's the non-treated control I've highlighted in red. And whether it was at 0 days, at 5 centimeters or down to 10 centimeters, there was no difference between any of the wetting agents at all or the plant helper product and the non-treated control in terms of urease activity. There was no difference at 5 to 10 centimeters. They were all the same at 0 days. There was no difference at 14 days between any of them. So they're not having any effect on urease at all. At 0 to 5 or 5 to 10 centimeters, nothing's happening at all with any of these products when it comes to urease activity. Now, when you get to 84 days out after regular applications, you still don't see anything different from the control and the 0 to 5 centimeters, but you do, again, see one little blip on the radar where the Cascade and Duplex do have an increase in this urease activity compared to the control. Okay? So this is an example of where it's not that nothing happened. Something did happen, eventually happen, and it could potentially occur regularly if you're on this program, throughout, a long time. But the majority of the information is saying nothing's really going to happen, but there's at least enough there where you might want to, as a researcher, you might want to expand this a little further to see indeed if that's just a odd outlier or just some strange occurrence, or indeed if that's actually going to occur regularly if someone's on this program, regularly throughout the golf course's regular season. Okay, so that was okay. That was urease. Okay, one possible reason for the impact of in the fairway, the average urease activity was significantly lower in the Florprimadol samples than in the non-treated sample. And there was no significant difference with Primo. And then it says one possible reason for the impact of Florprimadol is the fact that the turfgrass was injured and exhibiting bronzing within 2 weeks. I wish they would have shown those data. I don't know why they didn't show that. They're just saying that happened, which I believe it happened. But they're just saying that. I wish I would have shown it. And what they're talking about is this table right here, table 6. This was Primo and Cutlass compared to non-treated control on the mean urease activity in the fairway. And you see the non-treated control is at 51 micromoles of ammonium evolved per gram per hour. And so it's going from 51. And when they applied Cutlass, it went down to 35. When they applied Primo, nothing happened. There was no change in urease activity. And then when they were out in the top 5 centimeters, when they went down to 5 to 10 centimeters, nothing happened at all. But, basically when you're applying Primo to Bermuda grass fairways and then on Monday morning's show on greens, everything's A-okay. When you start applying Florprimadol, I don't know why you'd want, I don't know, based upon the paper on Monday morning and the paper I'm looking at now, I don't know why I would want to apply Florprimadol to Bermuda grass. Maybe someone can tell me what would be a benefit to that I'm not seeing in the data, because all I'm seeing is a lot of risk and not a lot of benefit. And I'm seeing actually documented harm from Florprimadol applied to Bermuda grass. So I would stick with Trinexapac, or some other product, but not Cutlass on Bermuda grass. It doesn't seem like. And I'm pretty sure Bermuda grass fairways is on the label. Bermuda grass greens is not on the fluoroperidol label. That's the error I made on Monday morning. In addition to its effect on turf, the active ingredient in Cutlass had shown an antimicrobial effect in suppressing disease-causing organisms and may have similarly affected urolytic microorganisms. So maybe it's having a detrimental effect on the organisms. That's what they're claiming anyway, or it's postulating, I should say. Urease activity was shown to be positively correlated with turf biomass by these authors. The positive impact by the wetting agents on urease activity can therefore be taken as an improvement in soil health, as long as the loss of nitrogen via ammonia volatilization is minimized by managing the soil pH. So what they're saying is that there was a little bit of indication that the urease activity went up from the application of duplex and the other wetting agent, and that may be an indicator that they could benefit soil health. So it's an indicator. You increased an indicator. Okay. The products did not significantly influence phosphatase activity in either trial. I'm not even going to go into that paragraph because nothing happened. Phosphatase is, again, the enzyme required to convert organic phosphorus into orthophosphate, and there was no effect. So they're not going to have an influence on the orthophosphate by either the wetting agents or the microbial product or any of the other plant growth regulators. They didn't have an effect on it. The lack of response from phosphatase activity suggests that it is not as sensitive to the products as urease. This highlights the importance of identifying the right indicators in monitoring short and long-term impacts of management practices on soil health. That's what I'm saying. How do you know? I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but on soil health. But how do you know those are the indicators that you need to be looking at? Because if they were looking at orthophosphate, they'd be looking at the wrong indicator because clearly it didn't have an impact. Soil respiration. Let's just look at the tables here, okay? So the tables, the mean respiration, again, respiration is indication of microbial activity. It's usually a carbon dioxide. Oh, here it is, milligrams of carbon dioxide per gram of soil. It's a measurement of microbes are respiring carbon dioxide. And so if you could measure that, which we do regularly, you can get an indication of the activity of the microbes. And we see here the Cascade and Duplex and let's see, Cascade and Duplex had no effect at 0, 14, and 84 days compared to non-treated control, but Revolution and the Plant Helper resulted in a slight increase at the 0 day immediately after application. Remember, that sample was taken just in mere hours after application, but then after that, there was no change at all in the soil respiration, meaning the Revolution and the microbial product apparently had an impact on soil microbial activity during the very first initial application for a very short period, but did not after that. When you come to the respiration with regards to the plant growth regulators, we see some detrimental effects early on, and we see some beneficial effects later on, which is quite peculiar to say the least. At 0 days, Primo actually resulted in a reduction in soil respiration, a significant reduction to say the least. It went from the non-treated control was at 0.39, and Primo dropped it to 0.02, essentially to 0 completely. Whereas fluoroperidol didn't have an effect during the first day, but at 2 weeks, 15 days out, it flipped. Where fluoroperidol now has having a negative impact on soil respiration and Primo Max isn't. Then at 42 days, you see both Primo and Cutlass result in an increase in soil respiration compared to non-treated control, and then nothing happened in 63 and 98 days. Now those are hard to explain when you go to actually start writing this up. You know, we had a negative impact at first from one and then from another, then they both increase and then nothing happened later on. So I'm going to read most of this next paragraph, and we're done in the next 5 or 10 minutes, but I'm going to read this paragraph because one, I don't know anything about PGRs. I don't know how to explain Table 8, and they do their best one way, whether it's accurate or not accurate, that's up to you, but I'm going to read what the authors wrote. Let's see. In the putting green, soil respiration rates in the Revolution and Plant Helper samples were significantly higher than the non-treated control and the Cascade and Duplex samples at 0 days, but none of the products significantly affected soil respiration at 14 and 84 days. The initial spike in soil respiration rates in the Revolution and the Plant Helper treatments, followed by rates comparable to the non-treated control and to the wetting agent samples, indicated that microbial activity exhibited immediate response to the Revolution and the Plant Helper a few hours after application. The immediate response suggests that these products acted as labile sources of carbon for microbial metabolism. Taken together with the impact of revolution and the plant helper on the abundance of total bacteria described above, these findings suggest that the increase in respiration likely came from microorganisms whose growth was not negatively affected by these products. So they're saying that the initial the positive response immediately after the application of those two products was probably a result of applying a carbon source. And I've always wondered why we don't do this. And I'm sure there's a very good example. I know squat about microbial activity in the soil, nothing, okay? But I've always wondered, if you're going to go out and you're going to apply a product like, I'm going to apply Eco Earth humic char to the soil or whatever, and it's going to, the carbon's going to go in and we're going to inflate all this stuff and the microbes are going to go crazy. Okay, what does that cost per acre? And they give me a cost, whatever the number is, $100 an acre. I've always wondered why we don't have a second control in studies where we take that $100, whatever the cost is for those microbial products and the carbon products. We just take that number, let's say it's $100, and we buy $100 worth of table sugar, and we just spread out a bunch of table sugar, see what happens. I mean, that's because it's what they're feeding on is soluble organic carbon, and that's what table sugar is. I'm sure there's a good reason why we don't do it. I don't know, but I mean, they're applying these products like it's a fungus and we're altering this. They're saying, no, it's just a carbon source. That's all it was. We're alleviating water and alleviating this water distribution and moisture uniformity. No, it was just the carbon. That's all it was. So I'm wondering, why don't we just apply straight sugar as a secondary control and just to see what the heck happens? And it would cost the same amount of money, right? If you did it based upon the amount of money it costs to apply those products. But again, I'm not a microbial person. I'm just sitting here throwing stuff on the wall and see what sticks. I don't. To me, I've always wondered why we don't do that. In the fairway, soil respiration was significantly affected by plant growth regulators. Primo Max and Cutlass resulted in significantly lower respiration rates than the non-tree control at 0 and 15 days. We just talked about that. So here's their explanation. However, both these resulted in significantly higher respirations at 42 days. Okay. This indicates that the exposure of microorganisms to Primo and to Cutlass may have an initial negative impact on their activity, but the products may indirectly increase microbial activity later. The possible explanation is that plant growth regulators, that's misspelled. Anyway, plant growth regulators were not used as labile carbon sources by microorganisms initially, unlike revolution and the plant helper. Rather, the products had an indirect impact on microbial activity later, possibly due to their impact on root growth and production of exudates. Again, going back to the roots exuding carbon. For Primo, this mirrors its positive impact on total bacteria abundance. For Cutlass, it seems that it increased microbial activity without a subsequent increase in microbial growth, probably because of its limited impact on root growth. So they're really banking a lot on these products' impact on root exudates, which I don't blame them. I'm not a plant physiologist, but the ones that I talk to, the ones that I know, they really understand that the plant is going to exude a tremendous amount of compounds out of the roots. This plant just didn't presto changeo appear out of thin air. It evolved in a very profound way. And the roots aren't just sitting there pulling up nutrients and water out of the soil. That's not how it works. The root is also exuding compounds into the soil. And they're saying that that's very likely why they saw the results they saw later on in the soil respiration numbers with both Primo and with Cutlass. In the conclusions, the responses to turf care products varied among microbial products, enzyme activities, and soil respiration. As initially anticipated, the wetting agents had negative impacts on the abundance of total bacteria and the ammonium oxidizing bacteria groups in the putting green, whereas one of the PGRs, Primo, boosted the abundance of total bacteria in the fairway. So, I mean, I think I was in the right ballpark when I was earlier on in the paper when I was saying I think the wetting agents would have a beneficial impact because of the carbon that's involved with them. And later, then they say that the beneficial impact of Primo came from the exudation of the roots, the exudation of carbon compounds from the roots. So I think I was in the right ballpark, the right thinking of carbon in the soil having impact on microbes and so forth. But they just didn't see that much from the wetting agents, but they did see that from Primo. So I don't know why you wouldn't see that from the wetting agents. I guess maybe it wasn't enough of it. I don't know, enough of the carbon from those products to do that. Or maybe the microbes couldn't break down those. I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but it does seem like I was at least somewhere in the ballpark of rational thinking. Anyway, however, the impacts were short-lived and were noticeable only right after or close to product application times. Regarding enzyme activities, the wetting agents Cascade and Duplex stimulated urease activity in the putting green, whereas the plant growth regulator treatment of Cutlass depressed it in the fairway. Treatments with Revolution and the Plant Helper, the microbial product, caused an immediate but short-lived increase in soil respiration in the putting green. Primo and Cutlass, on the other hand, depressed soil respiration in the fairway initially. Over time, both improved soil respiration, probably indirectly through their impact on root growth. And then the last sentence, overall, the products did not seem to have a lasting impact on soil biological health. So, what I would say in summing this up is, if you're going to go out and constantly apply one of these products like Primo, one that is known to have an impact on a soil health indicator, and you're going to be applying that constantly over and over and over, it's possible that in that scenario, you might see one of these soil health indicators stay at a higher level than if you weren't applying Primo, right? But the opposites, the same case would have to be true with something like fluoropyrimidol, where if you're going to constantly apply it, you're probably going to have a negative impact on some of the indicators for soil health. So what I'm getting at is they're saying that they didn't, the products did not seem to have a lasting impact on soil biological health. They didn't have a lasting impact. Shocker. I mean, I wouldn't think it would. But if you're going to be applying it constantly in every 2 weeks, in South Florida, whether it's on the East Coast or the West Coast, I don't care if you're in West Palm or even in Tampa up in Orlando, you're applying something all the time. Every week they're on those putting greens. I don't care what day, what week it is. It could be Christmas, New Year's, I don't care what it is. They're applying something all the time that never stops growing. So if you're constantly applying it, then the waning effect of these products that you might experience in Georgia, where this study was conducted, you might not see that. You might just see it stay at a higher level. But clearly, this paper shows you will not maintain that. The soil biological health will eventually go back down. So there just doesn't seem to be a lot there at all from either one of these the wetting agents or from the plant growth regulators. It doesn't seem to be a lot there. But if you're looking at, if you ask whoever it was, Bill Russell or Larry Bird, if you said, hey, I can increase your accuracy by 1% or 2%, and they'd go, okay, when they're at the top, thinking, well, how do I do that? Because at that level, when they're playing at that high of a level, 1 or 2% is huge. So if you're going to apply these regularly, and there's not really much going to happen. Well, what's your definition of not much? Well, you're only going to see maybe a slight bump, maybe 4 or 5%. Well, that might be what that particular superintendent needs. Maybe they're running a game so lean and so perfect and fine. 5% is an orders of magnitude increase. I mean, that's tremendous amount of increase compared to where they're at. They can't get much better than perfect. So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't jump in with both feet on these products. And if you're thinking you're going to increase soil microbial health or increase urease activity or increase soil respiration or microbial activity, it doesn't seem like you're going to do a whole lot with it. There may be some indications here or there, but you'd have to stay on the products if you really want to see the benefit. If you're going to see any benefit at all. In fact, they said that in the paper that fluoropyrimidol resulted in a decrease in quality, And it even says Cutlass in another is another wetting or another plant growth regulator commonly used in golf course and it may cause damage to the turf. And then they actually stated it that it did cause damage. Where did I say that? I lost it already. But it did cause damage again in this study. So it seems like fluoropyrimidol might not be a product that you want to consider on Bermuda grass, but Primo is the way to go. I mean, it's been around. I'm sure there's other, I say Primo. I mean, I just mean Turnexpec. I'm sure there's other brands that sell Turnexpec ethyl. But having said that, I wouldn't bank on these products, but I would leave it as an open. I wouldn't close the door on them either, I guess is what I'm saying. If you're looking at managing or altering something in the system. Let me go to the chat and see if there's anything that you want me to address. Oh, Aldo says nitrogen is technically a growth regulator. I guess it is. Yeah, you're right. I know quite a bit. Yeah, well, I mean, I know enough to be in trouble. But yeah, I spend a lot of my time and a lot of my career and life and research was done on nitrogen and phosphorus. A little bit on potassium as well. But yeah, that's where I spend a lot of my time. Yeah, so, okay. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. That's all I got. So I don't see anything else in the chat unless I missed something. I appreciate everybody showing up tonight. There was a good crowd. Look for, if you're a pro member, look for a comment in the community tab for pro members only for a upcoming meeting, our upcoming 2 or 3 month meeting. Okay, look for that. And if you want to join us, welcome to join us. If not, no harm, no foul. Otherwise, I'll see you back on Monday morning. Now, next week on Tuesday is election day, and my kids are off school for election day. I'm ambivalent on that. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. They want people to go out and experience voting. I'm like, that's great, but now I got to take my kids to the voting booth, and I got to manage 2 kids. It's kind of odd, but I'd use that opportunity to show them how important it is. But I can't be on because I got 2 kids next Tuesday. So I will be here for the Monday morning members show. And if there's by some miracle I can get on Tuesday, I'll come on Tuesday, but I wouldn't count on that next Tuesday. Okay, guys, be safe. I'll see you.